Hey game developers, Bilal from Zenfinity.net and welcome to another Unity tutorial. Now in this one we're going to use rigid body physics to let our player jump. So just download the project files from up here or from the description below and let's bounce. Okay, welcome to the editor, and if you haven't already, make sure to download the project files, and then you can just go ahead and go into the assets and then scenes and then double click on this main scene, and then you should see what I have in front of me right now. So if we just want to add jumping to our character, all we have to do is check if our character is grounded and then launch him upward using a rigid body. So with that said, let's go ahead and jump into our scripts folder here and double click the player controller one, and I will drag Visual Studio over here. And now I just want to go ahead and add a couple of attribute references here, and then we can work on the logic. So first I'm going to make a layer mask. Ground layers, and this is so that we can know which layers we want to look out for that are going to be ground layers. And I'm going to add a jump force, so how high we want to jump, and I'll set it to 7 by default. And now we want a private rigid body. Oh, sorry, we already have that. We actually want a collider here, so public sphere collider. And of course this can be any collider, but for our purposes it's a collider inside of this project. So now in our start function, let's go ahead and grab a reference to our collider. So equals get component sphere collider. Oops. Okay, and now let's go ahead and make our jumping functionality here. So don't worry about all of this movement code, it just lets us move on the X and Z axes. So now what we're going to do is just, when we hit space, add force. So let's do an if statement here and check if input.getKeyDown keycode.space. And what this means is just if the player presses the space bar, hence the down here. So if the space bar goes down, this code will fire once. So we just want to do rigidbody.addforce vector3 .up times jump force, and then we want to do force mode .impulse, which is very important, otherwise you will not really see much happen. Impulse just of course means that it is an impulse in that it'll add this amount of force once rather than over a period of acceleration. Okay, so let's go ahead and hop into Unity, and we can just go ahead and see that this is going to let us jump upward. But the problem is now our player can infinitely jump upward, and we very much do not want that to happen, unless that's what your game is about, of course. So if we want a more traditional jumping here, we can go back into Visual Studio. And now we just want to have a quick check for if it's grounded. Now what we're going to do for our grounded check is use a capsule cast, and we're going to check in a smaller radius underneath our circle, or our sphere, sorry, to see, whether we're on the ground or not, whether there's something close enough to our character or not that says I'm on the ground. So let's go ahead and create a private bool returning function called isGrounded, and I'll type in return false for now, just so that we can add this over here. We want to check if it's grounded, and we press space. Then what we can do is do a capsule check. So let's actually write in physics.checkCapsule, and we want to use the boundaries of our sphere, and then we want to use the radius that is a little bit smaller than our sphere here. So let's do collider.bounds.center is going to be the origin, so where this capsule starts. And now we want to end the capsule, new vector3 collider.bounds.center.x, as we don't care about to the right of the x or z. And then we also do, in the middle here, since this is the one we care about, collider.bounds.minimum.y, which means the minimum boundary on the y-axis, which is going to be the very bottom of our sphere. And then we want to check the collider's bounds.center.z, since again we do not care on the z or x-axis. I'll make a new line here so we can see this more easily here. And now our next argument here is going to be the collider's radius. So, how far out the capsule stretches. So we're going to work based off of our collider's radius, but I'm going to multiply it by 0.9. And the reason for that is because I want it to be 90% the actual size of the sphere, because we don't want it to just go ahead and hit things off to the side. Otherwise, we can just keep jumping when we're next to a wall. We want to make sure we can only jump when we're above the ground, or rather touching the ground. So let's, for the final thing to pass, put in our ground layers so that we make sure that we only check if we're touching layers out of this layer mask. So let's delete this return here and do a return up here. Alright, so now our logic is just perfectly sound here in our script, but the problem is that we haven't yet actually assigned our ground layers properly. So why don't we hop back into Unity, and then over here let's click on our player, and he should be on this character layer. Okay, and of course our ground is all on default right now. You can choose any layer for anything the player can jump on. I'm keeping it as default because that way we can make it by default. Anything the player touches is going to be something he can jump on, except for those we specify otherwise. So if we click on our player here and we see this ground layers component, we want to check our default. And you can, of course, check anything else in here that you want the player to be able to jump on. We don't want the player to be able to jump on characters, because that way we ignore checking with ourselves. That way our capsule cast will go through our player and into the ground. So if we hit play, and I smash the spacebar here, we only see him able to jump once. And that is, of course, because under the Sky's Collider, we're casting a capsule that would appear underneath him and would hit through these ground pieces. So, of course, we do need to land before we can jump again. So that is actually going to be it for this tutorial, and I hope it helped you out. And if it did, make sure to hit that like button and hit subscribe for more useful tutorials like this. And if you want to really speed up your game development process, make sure to hit that card in the top right, and it's going to be a free ebook on all the tools that you need to make your first game right now. And I will see you in the next video.